we appreciate everybody's involvement. This is an orientation for Illinois workNet, a portal that can be used to serve the Illinois Department of Corrections. There's been input for what they are interested in, both from their state executive staff as well as local management at the facility, the Kewanee Life Skills Reentry Center, the Logan Correctional Center, specifically the reentry program there, as well as Murfreesboro Life Skills Reentry Center. We've had lots of local and state engagement from Title I, well, from all titles actually. Title I, employment and training at the state and local level. Title II, and Perkins career and technical education is a little bit different in the correctional system because some of it is by Department of Corrections, and then other vocational training and types of education are through Lakeland College. But when a person is released and becomes a returning citizen, although the goal is to have them job ready, some of them will go into further training with community colleges and other types of training providers. Title III, Employment Services, Wagner Pizer has been very engaged at Kewanee, having a person inside the facility, an ES person, and also has been engaged in the development of this system. Also from Illinois Department of Employment Security, we've had engagement with veterans programs. DevOps and Leavers have participated in some of our events. And then Title IV, vocational rehabilitation, has been very engaged, especially in Kewanee, and is connecting with incarcerated offenders who may be able to use their services. We've had some engagement from community services block grant providers, the National Farm Workers Jobs Program. So this is first and foremost a resource that professionals and administrators and managers can use to look up information and have resources. Not every organization or partner will have frontline staff who will be using the system interactively, but that's a possibility. And then it's a resource for the Illinois Department of Corrections. And then it also importantly becomes an individual resource for the returning citizen. When they're incarcerated, they do not have their own email address or access to email. They only have limited internet capability when they're under supervision. But once they're released, they'll have their own account will already be set up, and what they've accomplished and what's been uploaded. So we're using this Illinois workNet also for employment services. We're using Illinois Job Link, but this is a portal that's going to have lots of resources and information. Natasha or Tammy, what did I neglect to say?
No, I think it sounds good.
All right.
Yeah, you covered it well.
We're up to it shows 12 participants. Sometimes I think if somebody is using their computer for video and using their telephone for audio, that might show up as 2 participants, but we've got a good group of people, both quality and quantity. So let's go on. Go ahead, Natasha.
Well, great. Thank you.
Natasha, kind of prepare before you get started. I'm going to have to jump off in about 10 minutes to get on another DOC call. So.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
So with Illinois workNet, as Mark had mentioned, what's important is that the offenders will have access to the information once they get out, um, so what we're looking at is only WorkNet. I'm already logged in. When you see the orange side of it, that's mainly for individuals and employers. And you can see there's these personalization areas. And so the offender could go through and they could access their information through their dashboard. All that information would stay with them. But to kind of, let's start at the very beginning, which is how we need to know how to get to the information for this project for the returning citizens. So we're on the, go to illinoisworknet.com. You'll see we're on the orange side. Up here at the top, it'll say partners. Click on partners and you flip over to the blue side. On the blue side, we have an area in WorkNet. It's called Program Guides for Partners. And so in that area, you can click on Returning Citizens. And here we have information that will continue to add to this these pages, provide information. It's like the main communication tool for our partners on instructions, for example, for guidance. This webinar will be added to our partner training materials and videos, full list of resources, updates. You can access the tools itself from this page is one way to get to those tools. And then we'll be having additional events. We have to put together a technical assistance list of upcoming events. So you'll be able to see those there as well as the past events. And we also have a survey for to collect information for those partners that are working with the returning citizens to identify any of those challenges that they're facing, and you know, what type of information, you know, what type of challenges they're facing. If they have any solutions, that's great. Then also to identify if they're still having that issue, that we can take a look at it and see what we can do to help out. Or if other areas are facing that same challenge. Our partner guidance are some articles that, you know, cover like the kind of like the executive summary of, you know, what you're supposed to do, high level view, and it also has links to instructions and videos as we have those, make those available. Again, we have the archived webinars and training materials, and then our full list of resources. So this is a lot on this page, I know, and we're building this out. So over on the left-hand side, we have the guidance where we have, these are those articles with their kind of grayed out like this. It's, you know, topics that we've discussed that we may need to have articles on those. You may see them, more of them. You know, maybe some of these are changing a little bit, but it'll really be impacted by the feedback that we get from the field as far as the type of technical assistance that's needed. We also have instructions. When we say instructions, we're really referring to the instructions that are specific to Illinois WorkNet, and then more resources. So these are additional resources outside of WorkNet, or if we, again, have those technical assistance webinars, then we can categorize them and put those additional resources that are used for those technical assistance webinars here as well. One of the very first things we're just going to do is kind of talk about how the program works as far as with Illinois WorkNet. And the very first thing we do is we need to set up staff in Illinois WorkNet. Illinois WorkNet uses its customer support center as a way to provide Illinois WorkNet partners access to the tools as well as the offenders, individuals that are being served by this program. And so we have organizations, we have the groups all set up, and we use our customer support center groups as a way to not only provide you access to specific customers, but also to control the level of access. So right now we have two primary areas, the LWIA, which covers, you know, just generally all the partners who are in that LWIA that are participating and need to have access to the tools. They all have the same access, and then we have another group for the Department of Corrections. Right now they have the same level of access. But if it turns out that in the future we need to have, you know, certain levels where we can hide or display only certain types of information, that we can definitely do that and set up those different types of groups. But right now, everybody has the same access to information. Once they are approved and added to those groups and given access to the tools, the next step is to add the offenders to Illinois WorkNet. And so, as I mentioned, that could be done by the Department of Corrections staff, could be done by the other LWS staff. And what it does is we enter them directly into the tools in the Customer Support Center. And this helps us, you know, get past the requirement that Illinois WorkNet has where you have to have an email account. It's only through this way that you can add them to the system and also without an email account. What the system is going to do is check to see if they already have an existing Illinois WorkNet account. If they do, it syncs it up. If they don't, it creates a new account for them. And then it also associates, for example, the Kewanee people with the Kewanee staff, Murfreesboro people with the Murfreesboro staff, and so forth. Throughout the system, we also have different types of tools for collecting information. And so we have our checklist form where we can update the information. There's different types of questions there to help collect about like them exploring and researching different types of careers. Also, that information can be used to help for lining them up with the training program that would best match their skills and interests, and also the area that they will be returning to, if possible. It also provides a way for the staff that are using IWDS to be able to send that information to IWDS, which is the reporting system. But then also once they're in that system, it will pull that information back into Illinois WorkNet so we can see the types of services that they're receiving through those providers. We have a career plan, and that's pre-populated to help save everybody time because there's a best practice, list of steps that are already available. We're working on tools where you can update several steps at one time, or a step for several people all at one time. So we've been making those updates. We also have an outcomes area, and then we also have dashboards and reports, and then case notes that are available throughout the system as well. So let me close out that. Okay, so that's the overall process. And then the main thing that if you need to have access to these tools, we have information here for becoming a partner. So as I mentioned before, you need to have an Illinois WorkNet partner account, which is you just simply log into Illinois WorkNet and then request access to become a partner. And then you can also request access to the returning citizens partner tools. So those instructions are on this guide as well. Okay, so let me just go back to, if I was to click on this link, it's going to take me to the production tools. If I have access to them, I'll go directly to my list of offenders. If you don't have access, it's just going to tell you that you don't have access and you need to request access. So I'm going to go to, instead of going to production, I'm going to our test environment. So you can see I'm in our test area. And this is our customer support center area. And you can see that the list that I'm looking at right now, the particular group is the returning citizens group. I can start to type in and it'll autofill and I can get to the right customers that I want to. I can search by Department of Corrections number, MSR, mandatory supervised release date, start date, end date. You can see the parent institution. For this particular test account, I only have access to Kewanee. And then I can see based on their MSR location, where they're going to be released to. So there's different ways to filter that information. We put up here the basic, like, at a glance type view of customer information, so you can kind of see who they're with, the career plan, if they're in IWDS, when they're going to be released, where they're going to be released to, and if they already have an appointment scheduled with the LWIA that they're returning to. You can export this information. We have access to the management report and services reports right here. Before I get into the actual people, let me go and show you how you add the offender. So you just click Add Customer. If you'd only have access to one area here, you can type in the, I'll maybe make that a little bit easier for me to do that. And then, okay, so you'll see that we have the Department of Corrections number, because that's the really, really important number. Sometimes it's really hard to get their social security number or other types of identifiers, and they may not know it. So use the Department of Corrections number. The social security number, if you have it, that would be great to add it at this time, but it's not required. If it's added, it just helps us to make a more positive match in Illinois workNet. So you can choose the date of birth, the county of commitment. You just select as many as apply, because they may have multiple offenses in multiple counties. Their mandatory supervised release dates, the counties, so you just pick one county, their offenses. You can add, and this list did come from the Department of Corrections, and their enrollment date, and then adding the customer. It's going to search, and it didn't find an existing account, so you can see it said it created a new account. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and look at some of these people. So I can just go ahead and look at John Cash here. And each of our offenders, we have what we call an overview. And so these are just the high level things of action items that need to be completed. And so whenever we first add somebody, they're going to show as active. If you needed to change them to exited for whatever reason, you could do that. You can see in the participant history when and who made that status change. One thing I want to point out too, if we get too far into this, is that you can see that this send message is grayed out. We do use Illinois workNet as a communication tool. So, but while the person is in custody, you cannot send them messages. They cannot receive the messages. But once they are released, then this button will be activated. The next area is the checklist. So we have this identify integrated resource team partners. So those who have access to this tool can be added as a partner, and you can see who the partners are. So if you had, it could be maybe like whenever they're in LWIA 20 is where they're in custody, but then they return to LWIA 18. You can identify, the people who have access are in 18, and add them to this list so they know who is working with that customer together. Okay, we have I'm just going to go ahead and go over to the checklist. So okay. They've been doing, that's a risk that we run whenever we do end tests. They've been making some updates for me. And so in the process of making the updates, they have, we broke something here. Let me do one that's not in IWDS. Otherwise, I would need to show you in production. With the checklist, let's see here, come on. Okay. The different person is probably because we've been making some updates with the sync with IWDS, but so this person isn't synced with IWDS, and again, this is on test, so you can see the checklist. And so again, the same thing that's on the overview page, it's repeated here. So whenever you go to each page, you know what the action items need to be complete. This shows that the Department of Corrections profile information is up to date. But we know that the mandatory service release date changes quite a bit. So whenever that changes, they can simply go in here and change that information, update the information. This is kind of this is what I was talking about with the syncing with IWDS. But for this particular example, you can see that we've went ahead and filled out first name, last name, post number, and some of this other information. And this information can be used to help with not only with eligibility and entry into their system, but also would be helpful whenever helping them identify their training programs. So the same thing with Explore Careers and Training Programs. They can identify, you know, what their goals are, what their skills and interests are, the high level, what type of work are they interested in doing, you know, what are your hobbies, strengths, what motivates you, what other situations do we need to plan around, TABE score, etc. With the job search preparation, the highest level of education, your credentials, different types of things, what do you like to do? Which prior job did you like and why? Would you like to do that job again? One of the things here too is Mark had mentioned with using Illinois Job Link. We have multiple partners that will be working with these customers. So the nice thing about having this common space is that if you have like, you know, somebody coming in that, you know, is with IDES and they've already done and answered a lot of these questions, then you have all that information right here. You can see they're already in Illinois Job Link. So then the next person that comes in, you know, you're not duplicating effort. You're not asking the same type of information over and over again. And then we have an area for transitioning for release. So that in this case, you can see they have contact information, or you can add multiple contact places where they might be moving to. And this would be helpful with, you know, finding, you know, aligning them with a job once they are released. It kind of has to be a little bit of flexibility there and room to make last minute adjustments from what I understand, because the approval process for them, whenever they're actually being released, there's certain criteria that has to be met. And so knowing those potential addresses can be helpful with, you know, trying to work with them to, one, get them aligned to local services, to help them, you know, hit the ground running with, you know, some services to help them to be successful, but then also with helping them find a potential job, you know, as soon as they get out. And then the schedule, we have an appointment tool where we can have the receiving LWIA staff set up appointment times. And so whenever they're working with the offender and they know they need to go back to LWIA 18, they could like set appointment and see if there are any appointment times available in the system for LWIA 18 or whoever they're supposed to be connected with, to make sure that they get set up. So as soon as they're out, you know, they can take their printed version of this. There's a print button down here. So they can take all this information with them and they have their appointment time and a lot of the information that that's been collected So whenever they go to work with the career planners, they already, have a listing of information, and they know what work has already been completed for this customer. Any questions so far? Okay. We also have a case note tool, and we use the case note tool as a communication tool as well. If you click case notes, you can select we call it a task, or kind of like it's different than the subject line. It's kind of like a category. And then you have their contact date, and then you can put in some text here, put in text here, and you can send it as a message, an email, or just a case note without sending the message. If you choose to send it as a message or an email, you can select the people that have access to this person. Or if you just do it as a case note, then you can do it without, you can just save it into the system. And then whenever I go to case notes, I can see the message as well as it was sent without sending an email, and who sent it and when it was sent. For the case notes, we also have, you could add case notes in a variety of places in the system, but there's a case note tab here, and it would have a summary of the different case notes that were entered. You could add a case note from here as well, filter them, or export a list of case notes. Okay. The other thing that we have is the career plan, and what we're going to be taking a look at is the staff view. So it's like the builder view for the career plan. The offender will have their own view for the career plan, but most likely they will not be able to access it until the release. But they could always print out the copy for them. Okay, so we have our first overview page that kind of gives a high level of the assessments, career path, accomplishments, and the listing of goals and related steps. These goals, we have complete intake and mandatory life skills education. You click on it, and there are 3 different steps that are here. This is our pre-populated career plan for each of these areas. And so primarily the Department of Corrections will be updating this information. So if they can just click on the link, and they can enter in, it's already associated with the goal, start date, due date, once it's started, weekly hours, special instructions. If they needed to, if they wanted to, they don't have to, but if you wanted to identify which barrier challenge that this helps them with, then that could be added as well. And then go ahead and update that information. They can add the service provider who's actually providing the service. You could add dollar value of service, but it's not necessary. And then if they earn any credentials by completing this particular step, they can add the credentials here as well. So now I did that. You can see I updated the orientation mandatory life skills. So whatever updates are made in the system, then the customer will have their view as well, so they can see those updates. The overall, normally we don't necessarily have it pre-populated. So the point is that you go through a process of, reviewing the different assessments. You put together an assessment summary. Based on the assessment summary, you put together a listing of goals, and you can still add more goals. We have a set of them that are already, identified, so it's not, so you don't have to add more, but you can. And then we have an area where you add steps. So if you add a particular step, Just do this one. You'll see that it's listed here, and so then you can edit the information, you know, select, put it with a goal, and then it'll move down to that section. Go back to my area here. I can't remember which one I added it in, but then you can see the listing of the steps here. So for example, we had complete vocational training inside DOC, complete vocational training outside DOC. So if they're only doing vocational training inside DOC, you could just like remove that step. Okay. So that's the career plan. And then we have an outcomes section where you can kind of see, you know, the overall with the career plan, different services, goals, where you are with that, measurable skills gained, if there's anything in there, the employment, earned credentials, and then we always encourage people to write success stories. So it's an area to enter their success story. Okay, and then so one of the things that I just want to point out that as we're working with the different partners, we all understand that we have our own systems where we enter information, and so sometimes there is duplication of data entry, but what we've really tried to do is minimize the duplication of data entry. And only include the stuff that we feel is like really necessary to share, at least at this point in time, among the partners. Just because we don't have access to each other's systems, this is a common place where we can add in and use it again as a communication tool across the partners so that you can see what's going on and try to minimize any duplication of effort as well. So if somebody's already done something, then we don't necessarily need to do it. It's already in the system. You have visibility of it. Really looking forward to using this tool for once the offenders are moving, back to their county, and trying to get the other partners involved that are the local partners, and working on that handoff between the parent institution, OEA, and then the returning OEA. Any questions or anything you want to add, Mark or Tammy?
No, I think you covered it well. Thank you.
Okay, is anybody, no questions? Any concerns? Any thoughts on information that would be helpful or useful, or challenges that you face? All right, we have a quiet group. One other thing that I didn't mention yet is that we have Optimal Resume, and Optimal Resume is a tool that's available through Illinois WorkNet, where you can work with them to build resumes. And so the nice thing about Optimal is, I mean, it's kind of cool just in general, but it has a lot of functionality to it. There's simple parts of it, but then if you really want to dig into it, there's quite a bit of tools that are available. What I think would be good too is to be able to maybe add in like sample resumes that would be very helpful to this particular group, like for the different types of training programs that are offered, but then also maybe how to deal with some of their situations, if they've been incarcerated for a little while. maybe something that might be, if anybody has any templates that you would possibly use with someone who is currently in custody to update their resume. And we can put those into the system as well as examples to start out with. So, all right. So, well, if you would like to have access, or if you need to have access to the tools, then please let us know. I'm going to show you how to get to the guide page again. So you go to Illinois WorkNet, click over to Partners. There's a Returning Citizens area. And this full list of resources here has the instructions for becoming a partner and requesting access to returning citizens. And this will also be where we'll continue to build out those instructions, technical assistance tools. Those will all be in this guide. So, all right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. Nobody else has anything, then you have, what, 20 more extra minutes to your day. Okay. Move my cursor. Can't find my. There we go. All right. Thank you very much.